Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and to a different kind of video today. As you can see, Tower of London there, Tower Bridge is just down there, and we're going to see if this is the best cycle route in London, going from this sort of area all the way down to Richmond. So without further ado, I say let's get straight into it. And so the 30+ mile journey had begun. Now we're in sort of central East London at the beginning here on the cycle highway, and this will turn into even more of a highway later on. You can see the Shard in the distance. Now there are a lot of pedestrians on here. There is also a lot of cycle traffic, but as you can see it wasn't too bad today, and we will have a lot of bikes coming down the right hand side here. There are also a lot of traffic lights, and as you see in a minute I do have to stop let some pedestrians pass. However, coming up, these pedestrians didn't want to stop, so you do have to be careful. Sometimes they do just run across the road like that. I tend to keep going full speed and just hope that they sort of, speed up, which they did. And now we stop at our first traffic light. Now I'm entering one of my favourite parts of this journey. So I just call this the Big Hill, and this is sort of what they call Tower Hill. Now you're going to want to go in a really high gear, high range here, and you really blast down this bit. It's one of the most enjoyable routes to do this hill here, because you can just go so fast and you don't use particularly too much energy. Now the roadworks here, as this nice gentleman escorted us around, but you do get some things like this. I've been working here for a while, and you just have to sort of go around like that. Now we're entering something called Drag Race Tunnel, that I like to call it, because me and friends and family have done quite a few drag races in this tunnel, so hence the name. High gear, high range, full throttle, and it's a nice break from the sun in the summer because you do get some nice cool air flowing through here. Then I slow down into that curve obviously, and as you can see I'm gaining on this guy pretty quick, aggressively sort of coming towards him, and this use of energy will hurt me later on in the journey, as you can see. Now we enter something called the cycle motorway. Now this is by the river and is by far the nicest bit of the journey. Now you shouldn't sprint this bit, even though I call it the cycle motorway, as you'll use up valuable energy that you could need later on in longer journeys such as this. Now you speed up as it's a longer stretch, but not too much. Go in sort of a higher gear mid-range so you don't use up too much of your energy, and I tend to be quite aggressive on this bit, overtaking quite a few people because I don't really like to hang around. But it is quite a nice track, you can see, all the way through the river, basically to Westminster, and it's a nice little section of the route. Now as you can see, after that nice free stretch of cycle motorway, we did get stuck in some traffic around the Westminster area, which is pretty usual. It can be a little tricky section, so you do have to make sure you get in lane. We've got people putting out our hands here, getting in lane, but I always manage to sneak through somehow. I take it wide and I go down here. Now we are going to end up with quite a queue at this light down here, but as you can see I sort of go around and manage to sort of push through a bit, and you just have to be a little bit sort of on it if you want to get anywhere, so you don't get stuck behind people, just on the bike there. Here we go, so I cut that little bit out and wait in the light because, don't want to be sat there waiting, do you, on the video? And here we go, here's what I mean. I sneak through, I go through this maze of people, and we're off. There we go, there weren't any cars, so I just sort of, floored it. Going past the Houses of Parliament here, Westminster Abbey, everyone, there we go, you can see it. A nice shot of it here. As we go down towards the Chelsea and sort of the richer areas of London. And so a little further down towards Chelsea and the Battersea area in West London, we come across our first roundabout to navigate around. So I do have to wait here a little bit just to get out safely. But the good thing about being on a bike is that people generally are aware that you're sort of there in London. Sort of he's using the wrong lane, I mean, you know. But at least, you know, we made it out alive, at least. Now after this runner's running days were almost abruptly ended, we continued down this large stretch of cycle highway again, as I like to call it, or cycle motorway, towards the Battersea area and towards where the A4 links up with Heathrow and everywhere. Now here I'm doing something called slipstreaming, which is riding in another rider's sort of air removal as the air comes behind them and it sort of spurs you on. But I get bored of this and decide to undertake a burst of speed, cycling about, well, the 1, 2 there, another 2 there, and I sort of floor it to really accelerate here. And this burst of speed will hurt me later on in this journey because of the vast length of it. And as I'll tell you later, my legs were hurting towards the end, but especially on the way back, so I wouldn't advise that, but I'm just a bit of a keen rider. After a quick launch from the lights there, we continued on down to Earl's Court, where we go into a slightly unfamiliar zone for me. Now this is where we actually turn off the river road here, and yeah, start to go into unfamiliar territory. Now I've got you on a bit of time lapse here because, as you can see, I am slipstreaming, that method that I mentioned earlier, for quite a while. Now this is my first sort of early sign that I might be getting a little bit tired. A good 10 miles into the journey, I would say, maybe 8 miles, because one way it's about 18 miles the way I went. Now this is the first sign of me getting tired, because a rider like me that normally likes to sort of overtake and doesn't like to get behind someone is just choosing to sort of coast behind, which sort of mentally sort of says that my body wasn't up to it. But this is a chance to recover and to do better later on. Now I believe up here we go actually past a very nice Lamborghini Urus. Here we go, there it is on the right, and we cross onto the south side of the river. So now we are on the south side of the river. Now this is still London, it's getting closer towards Richmond and Putney Heath, but it looks a lot more like the countryside you would get in Dorset, where I am originally from, like sort of countryside looking surroundings. So I mean, it amazes me that this is London, but there are places like this that you can go to, and yeah, it really feels like you're outside of London. Now I am starting to tire slightly at this section, so hence you can probably tell by the video that I'm not going as fast, but I'm keeping a steady pace just so we get there, so I'm not completely clapped out when we arrive. At this point in the journey we meet our first navigation difficulty, after Google Maps tried to send me on the A3, which is a big no-go for the bikes as it's a massive dual carriageway and takes you out to the southwest. So I was accidentally on the pedestrian bit here, and as you can see I'm going so slow I was a little confused as to where I was, but after managing to find the cycle lane I realised that we were entering Putney Heath, which is the neighbouring sort of park area to Richmond Park, so we are getting closer. But yeah, let's navigate through this and get into some fields. As you can see now, we are very solidly in the forest here. Now it was a bit of bother trying to find Richmond Park, and this is still actually Putney Heath here, sort of merging into Richmond Park. You can tell by how slow I'm going. Sorry about the flashing sun, couldn't do anything about that. But I was getting very bothered, very annoyed, trying to find the exact location so I can say that I made it to Richmond Park. So we probably added a good couple of miles to our total journey time just faffing around in the park here. But I'm quite tired at this point. So that's why I'm going so slow. And my rear tyre was starting to play up, as you can see by the thumbnail. I had to get a new rear tyre after this journey, and it wasn't doing so great in the heat and going off road, so but we were close at this point. So finally, on this last clip here, before you go back to a live me, we did eventually make it to Richmond Park, and it took a little longer to find than hoped, adding a couple of miles to for the journey. But I was sweating a lot, I was tired, but I still had a little bit of energy left, and we did make it after all, and that is what matters. This is one of my longest rides, I would say, the longest I've recorded on the channel, and it was 18 miles there, and using helpful Google Maps, I managed to calculate that due to the long route I took back, it was a 32-mile round trip. So after about 1 hour, we have made it to Richmond Park, all the way on the Trek Navigator 200. Look at that. You wouldn't think this is London. It didn't used to be London, but it is sort of classified as London now because the underground does come out here. But what a trip that was. You end up going through Putney Heath. You would have had a bit of an audio description from the future me on the past clips that I took on the ride down here. Quite tired out, but I think this is arguably one of the best rides in London. Compromises some of the cycle highway with some Putney Heath, some main roads, some little roads next to the River Thames, and it's quite the ride. So I hope you enjoyed this probably short and sweet, to the point video, different kind of video. Don't forget you can follow my Instagram. It's in the channel description and the description box below this video. Let me know any ideas you'd like me to do. This is sort of a filler video because I had a couple of weeks in London, and then I will be going away somewhere, so you'll have a video on that and some car reviews to come. Hope you enjoyed. Stay safe.